As my friend Julian McKenzie likes to say, what a do, baby. Welcome to the Sunday Live. Come on.
I love a Julian McKenzie reference on a Sunday morning.
I'm a huge Julian McKenzie fan. Obviously, you can read him in The Athletic, all over the Ottawa Senators beat. There's Marco D'Amico, all over the Canadiens beat. There's Shaun Starr right here. Two thumbs of this guy all over, I don't know. I like to play golf a lot, and I like to talk sports.
All over the golf courses.
Bro, let me tell you something. I hope you all appreciate this. I have cut out so much golf out of my season because of this YouTube show. You guys have made this unbelievably exciting, so much fun to do. My golf rounds have absolutely been chopped. Marco D'Amico can't comprehend. When he texts me, you playing golf today? I'm like, yeah, I'm playing golf. He's like, again? I'm like, bro, you don't understand how much less golf I've been playing. But seriously, it's a pleasure to be here. A pleasure to be here with all of y'all. And thank you so much. Roll call right away. There's D'Amico. I'm Starr. A big shout out to our friends. You can support us by supporting this channel. And we're brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. It's your go-to for custom tees, hoodies, merchandise. They're proudly Canadian owned, fast shipping, no minimum orders, and unbeatable prices. Get yours today at cheapesttshirts.ca. That's where D'Amico gets his. That's where I get mine, and you should get yours. Don't forget, we're going to be at McLean's Pub, a live show. You're watching this live. You can come see us in person. You can watch us. I don't want to get too carried away. October 22nd at McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street, from 7 to 8 p.m. Marco, we have some awesome gifts to give away, don't we?
Yes, we do. We have gift cards to McLean's Pub. We have a set of tickets that belong to McLean's season ticket threshold to be able to give away as well. We'll get to you on how that contest is going to work shortly. And obviously, like I said, we're going to have quiz and whatnot as well during the show. It won't simply just be us doing a live show. There will obviously be a watch component to it. And then obviously a Q&A with you guys if you have more questions that you want to ask up front rather than putting it on a chat.
Yeah, so we'll see you there October 22nd from 7 to 8. No reservations. First come, first serve to watch the live show. And, of course, we're brought to you by Little Bear Online, where Chuck and Evie and their amazing staff care about your pets as much as you do. They have local food and some of the best pet accessories from around the world at great prices, littlebearonline.com. And welcome in Catherine Prince, Catherine with a K, prince.ca. You're buying or selling your home. You just want a valuation on your current home. She's a RE/MAX Platine broker and a proud supporter of the show and a friend of ours and a friend of yours. So we did it, brother. The Montreal Canadiens preseason is over. A little gut check reaction before we get into the comments. Like, what do you think we learned watching this team operate through 6 playoff games that ends with, like, whatever? The Canadiens lose 3-1 in a preseason game to Ottawa. It wasn't the bloodbath a lot of my friends were expecting on a Saturday night, but, like,
my goodness.
I think I learned a few things. Marco, why don't you start? What do you think you learned through 6 preseason games?
I think I'm going to start off just with Kirby Dach. I thought Kirby Dach was moving exceptionally well yesterday.
Yeah.
Man, do I need coffee? I think that Kirby Dach looked like he was physically ready. Took a couple of bumps. There were a couple of clench moments for us on the press gallery where we were looking down and he was like toppled over the bench because he had just taken a nasty hit. But
yeah,
for all intents and purposes, he's skating very well, very aggressive, making some good plays. So it's good to see the Kirby Dach is in shape and ready to go. Will he play all the games to start the season? We don't know yet, but I think just from a mechanical perspective, he looks to have recovered from his knee surgery quite well. So that was definitely one of them. The other one is, man, how close to the show is Adam Engstrom?
Right there, knocking on the door.
Like Sheldon Cooper, like triple knocking on the door. Like it's just,
oh my God, Big Bang Theory reference there.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that, guys. But I think he's quite close in terms of I think his game is quite polished. And the fact that he can play left, he can play right. I really like what we're seeing here. So I definitely enjoyed his game. And then, man, Joe Veleno.
Yeah.
Just the wheels and the effort that he showed last night, the play defensively to stop the puck at the goal line when Montembeault was displaced. Like, just a good top down, solid 200-foot game. I felt like him too, just better and better every game. Again, my 2 cents solidified his spot, on the 13 or 14 forwards that the Canadiens are going to carry.
Well, it's interesting too, right? Like I wonder about, we're talking about contracts. Marco had a thorough breakdown of the Canadian secret weapon when it comes to negotiations vis-a-vis Laine Hutson. You can read that at rg.org with a real numerical breakdown of how they can make Laine Hutson a very rich / happy young man with a long-term future in the Montreal Canadiens. I wonder about Mike Matheson. We talked about him this summer. He spoke to Hughes and Gordon. He wanted an extension. That's one of the things I took away is that Adam Engstrom, you're bang on. He is knocking on the door, and that might mean someone that fills in the shoes of a Mike Matheson down the road. We shall see how that plays out. But the other thing for me, the takeaway from the 6 games was players forcing management into a decision, players leveling up. I like Owen Beck. I think Kapanen makes the Montreal Canadiens. Martin St. Louis kind of alluded to this. He's going to go, all signs point to him going with 13 forwards. So, Samuel Blais, my friend, is going to be tested on the waiver wire. Same thing with Capo Kakinen. They're going to subject them to waivers, I would guess. Is that a fair read?
Yeah, that's a fair read. I'd be because I don't think the Canadiens are going to go 8 defensemen.
Right.
So
no.
Are they going to start the season with 22 players on their roster? I find that weird when you could just keep Blais around. But again, we'll see what Kent Hughes decides to do. 13 forwards, considering, depth and all that, and the risk of sending Samuel Blais down and losing him for nothing. At that point, just carry 14. But yeah. I'm not the GM. I'm not the coach. So we'll see what comes of that. But you look at guys like Owen Beck, you look at guys like Florian Xhekaj, Adam Engstrom. I think they've left their calling cards on what they can do. I think there's more polishing to be done in their games. Adam Engstrom to me is probably going to be one of the first call-ups, in any situation, I believe. Mm-hmm. One of the things that intrigued me the most about watching Adam Engstrom is the fact that the Canadiens used him up until last night. Well, at certain points last night as well, but used him on the right side a lot this preseason. His offside. So when you talk about a replacement for Mike Matheson, there's a reason for that, right? They're trying to test how close he is because they may have to make a decision on Mike Matheson real soon as to whether to extend, let him walk, or trade him. And I know the majority of the fans watching this, I know where they sit. So it's good to know that you will have the luxury of being able to potentially shift a guy out and bring in another guy and not lose a step. I think that's the dream for an NHL general manager. Mm-hmm. It allows you to take money and place it elsewhere. Now it's just a question of, a guy like Engstrom developing more of that minute eating habit in his case.
I see some of the comments starting to flood in, on Noah Dobson. And I know, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but watching the Canadiens wrap up their preseason with Ottawa yesterday, I'm going to speculate here for a second, but Noah Dobson doesn't look 100% healthy to me. And that game played itself out like a don't get hurt game until the third period when the first line really started to take the game over. I liked your tweet, Marco, during the game that you didn't have the Cole Caulfield boarding penalty on Claude Giroux right in front of the Senators bench on your bingo card. But I like that jam. I like that jam from the Canadiens sniper.
Jam. It was a love tap and Giroux
he hit him. He hit him.
Okay. I feel like I've pushed my sister harder than that, and she was able to withstand the push. I don't know. I just it is what it is. To me, first of all, when we're gonna get to the Dobson point, I don't think he's playing at 100% right now.
Yeah, right.
You don't walk in with a groin injury and just magically are good to go in 5 or 6 days.
Especially in hockey, where you got to push off and
Yeah, players have told me about this. It really does impact you for a week or two before you can really kind of go into it. Oh, Alexander Zhuravsky with another primary assist.
Man, add him to the list of prospects that had a great weekend. We'll talk about that. LJ Mooney, Michael Hage, a few guys had some big performances. There's another one for you.
Yeah, and so when you're looking at a player like him, you got to give it a little bit of time. Let him get used to it. Let him get comfortable. Yeah, to me, I think the most indicative play and how he's not at 100% was when Dylan Cousins blew right by him on the power play, right? Noah Dobson, as I have seen him, would be able to stay with Dylan Cousins and keep stride with Dylan Cousins.
Yeah.
So that there's something off when he was pushing off because the length of his strides were far smaller, which is usually indicative of limited ability to expand the leg motion. So that's generally a groin situation. So he's probably he didn't push off to the maximum capacity that he could, which is why he kind of looks slower. And if you go back and watch the tapes, his skating strides were far stricter and closer to the shoulder length than it was, a little bit more to the extreme when you want to push off with a little bit more power. But again, it's preseason. The Canadiens basically Marshawn lynched this performance where they were just there so they didn't get fined.
That's it. Well said.
They just didn't want to get injured, wanted to get a tune-up in, finish this off. I could tell you right now, those players are partying. Players around the league are partying. The preseason games will be limited to just 4 as of next season.
Yeah. So, what else did we learn? Weigh in the comments below. Your takeaway here as we, await the final roster for the Montreal Canadiens. Now the camp is over, right? Kapanen's on the team. I think Joe Veleno is on the team. As we alluded to already, the Canadiens are very likely to carry 13 forwards, right? I kind of liked what I saw. And again, Demidov, they pull him from the game for precautionary reasons in that Quebec City game, right? But in the brief and very granted small sample size, there was something about Kapanen and Demidov, and maybe it's more complimentary, brother, to Demidov than it is to Kapanen, without disrespect. But for a 19-year-old man, maybe Jeff Gordon's right when Connor McKenna and I spoke with him at Laval. The belief is already existing that this young man can drive a line. He's already very confident in his game, but there was something about him and Kapanen that I'm like, I want to build off of that. I want to see more of that. What's your educated guess to how MSL perhaps will build up his lines, the top 9, more exclusively?
Well, I think you don't want too many projects on the same line.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we can all agree. You can tell me in the comment section, but I think that the Demidov Doc Laine line was just a train wreck, doomed from the start.
Yeah.
Just doomed from the start. I agree with fan club over here.
Definitely. What's up, Rod? Good to see you, Rod. Yeah.
What I will say when it comes to Kapanen is just really and I'm sorry, guys. He asked for it to be said Kapanen.
Please.
I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. I see the comments. I'm really sorry, guys. It is what it is. So I'm not going to call him Kapanen. When you see him play, he plays a 200-foot game. He allows the Canadiens on a third line to win the majority of their faceoffs. He's able to cover for Demidov, who, has had some defensive miscues to start, which is completely normal for a player of his talent coming over from the KHL. And I think, with Newhook there as well as the vet on that line, which is saying something, that uses speed to cover for them. I feel like it's just complimentary piece after complimentary piece. The one thing with Kapanen is he has the hockey IQ to read the play. He may not necessarily have the skill to finish the play, pun intended, but he could definitely read the play. And if you have the IQ to follow a play, even if it goes in 60% of the time, every time, it's still 60% of the time, right? So
right.
It's to me, it's a really good ratio. So it works out that way where if you have the mechanics to be able to follow a playmaker like Demidov, then it becomes very interesting for a player like Kapanen, who is more of a shooter than a passer as a center, which are rarer nowadays. You want more of a puck distributor as a center, and that's where the play driving element of a Demidov becomes so much more important. He makes players around him better. Kapanen can use the rub, and you then have Alex Newhook there to round things out and cover for them with his speed.
What about this second line? I think everybody that's on the channel right now, thank you so much for spending a part or a good chunk of your Sunday morning with Starr and D'Amico. I hope you enjoyed the new branding. It's been a long time coming. It's been something we've been working a lot on, and happy to put it in play now. So if you've noticed the change, yes, good eye, because there has been a change that I don't know if the Montreal Canadiens, as we talk live on this Sunday morning at 10:15 a.m. Eastern time, that they have right now. Big shout out on a Sunday. Always nice to see the boss man in the chat on Sunday morning. That they haven't answered to the second line just yet. Like the second line is going to be on any given night, like who's going and who's playing, who's got the jam. It could be Kirby Dach's line, but it could be the Kapanen line, right? I mean, I think that's my state of mind going into Wednesday and Thursday as the Canadiens open up their season in Toronto and Chicago. What do you think?
I think that lines 2, 3, and 4, however you number them, are probably going to play very similar 5-on-5 minutes.
Right.
My 2 cents. I think they're going to cycle 2 lines. They're going to start with the first line, cycle 2 lines, put the first line, then put the fourth line back, and back and forth. In terms of where the TOI is going to vary, I think it'll be on special teams. And I think that'll make the difference, right? So it really is to that. It becomes a matchup situation as well. Like, I think that the Canadiens veteran line, and we'll see if the Canadiens continue to start, like if they start the season with Laine on the fourth line, right? Like we'll see if that changes, because, for all intents and purposes, Bolduc as well has to be healthy, right? If Bolduc's not healthy, then we're probably going to see the lines we do. But if Bolduc is healthy, what do you do with that top line? Because I didn't necessarily mind Joe Veleno in certain situations with Kirby Dach. Like I really like that combination. Speed, going to the net. He's strong on his skates, can protect the puck. I like that. So, do you keep Brendan Gallagher there, or do you want him on your fourth line so you could use that more as like a shutdown line, right? Especially when you're playing on the road, you don't have the last change. But so this is the element that you really have to start getting in, right? Because you're on the road 3 games, 1 back-to-back in that regard. Are you going to want to protect some of your lines so that they're not fully exposed? So you're not loading them up with just talent, but you have guys that could also cover defensively. Like these are the conversations that need to be had. So it's very likely that the opening day roster setup will maybe not even be the same from game 1 to the home opener against Seattle. It all depends on what Martin St. Louis wants to do in terms of change. The only constant is that first line. Although I will say that I would hope that we see a little bit more from Uri Slafkovsky at 5-on-5 so that line can stay going in the offensive zone. I was in French, I think the word is j'étais laissé sur mon appétit. Like I was expecting a little bit more bang from him last night. Really nice assist on the Cole Caulfield play, but just a lot of plays went to die on his stick at 5-on-5. So I'd like to see him pick that up, because I expect a really good season from him as well. Yeah,
and again, I can see some of the comments, in regards to the Anderson line and going through the motions, man. I'm convinced of this, and look, maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong, but these veterans are going through they're just getting the engine warm, getting ready for Wednesday. Nobody wants to get hurt. They just want some touches. They want some reps, take some shifts, pass the puck around, get going, right? Which takes me to talk about the 4 guys down the middle this season, at least starting Wednesday night, projecting Nick Suzuki, Kirby Dach, Kapanen, and Evans, and New Hook on the wing, right? Like I'm down with that. I'm down with that.
Delano too. Yeah, my only thing is that's 4 right shot centers. So you're gonna need and 2, one of them, Kirby Dach, kind of improving in the face-off dot. So you almost know that you have to play a lefty that's going to take draws on his line, at least to start, right? So be it Bolduc or Veleno, you're going to have one of them on that line, in my honest opinion. And that's why the Canadiens were trying Veleno where they were. It's not by chance. And then you complete that line with who you think can play on that line. I liked Gallagher. I think Brendan Gallagher does not know how to take a night off. That guy's engine is always revving at 60. Right. But it's just, I think he completed that line quite well. To me, it's going to be important because, you're going to face off against the Leafs. They have a strong center line. In fact, that's their strength right now is down the middle. And then, you're going to get to Detroit and Chicago. Their center lines, not as filled out. I think Detroit is a little bit better just because you have Marco Casper now, who's really kind of come in as a second line center, but you're going to have to go head to head with these guys. And that's going to be the intriguing part to me is like, how are you going to use a lot of these lefties to your advantage? And so that's where I think a guy like Joe Veleno really comes into it, because on top of the other elements we talked about, his speed, his tenacity, his puck protection, it's that face-off ability as well. And that's worth its weight in gold when you're the Canadiens, because when the Canadiens are able to play a puck possession game and start the play with the puck, they're a very dangerous team. Where things go sour for the Canadiens is when they go 2 or 3 minutes without significant amount of puck touches and they're stuck chasing the play like we saw last night.
I want to get into what y'all think, and make sure you flood the comments and like and subscribe to our channel. Please. Thank you so much for liking this video today. I'm curious to see where the viewer reaction is to where you think the Canadiens are going to finish in the standings now that the preseason is over. I have my perspective. Marco, of course, has his. We'll get into that. But I'm going to say that for a second, right? I want to talk about the potential of a couple of storms brewing. And I'm not one to dwell on the negative, but I'd like to be a realist as much as I can. And I want to talk about Patrik Laine. I want to talk about the potential storm brewing there for a guy in a contract year. What's going to happen if he doesn't get his minutes? Obviously, he's going to get his touches on the power play. And the other thing is, and I get it, the Canadiens' top line, I believe, is going to be a dominant top line in hockey, and they're going to need Uri Slafkovsky to round that out. But it's another preseason where I don't know. I don't know if Slafkovsky checked enough boxes that propels me, Marco, to a place where, like, get ready. He's going to start this season guns blazing, ready to go, firing on all cylinders. That's the second storm, is how many times this young man was taken aside, spoken to, coach, general manager, and said, hey, we need a little bit more. We need you to play bigger. We need you to play with a little bit more intensity. So why don't you walk me through what you saw from the smaller sample size when Uri Slafkovsky was playing in the preseason? What was your read?
I think Slafkovsky is obviously playing not to get injured here.
Yeah.
Getting that skate to the face from Christian Dvorak right off the bat, not exactly ideal. But, you definitely saw the vision. You definitely saw the ability. You definitely saw that he was able to make space for his teammates. He's a kind of guy that you want on that line, because when they have to change their style, right? Because Caulfield and Suzuki kind of play their own style where they move around with the puck and they obviously try to play that transition game. But then when it comes to having to get dirty and play the cycle game, well, that's where Uri becomes more valuable, because A, just the size, but B, the hands in tight, the ability for him to come up with the puck. Like, this was a major problem for him when he started, right? Because that's the game they tried to get him to play, and he just didn't have the timing, the technical knowledge, etc., to be able to play that kind of game. Now I feel he plays it perfectly.
Yeah.
I think the Canadiens don't want to load up their first line. Right. I think the Canadiens feel like you keep that line going because they complement each other. And then you have Demidov on another line so that you have two successive waves of offense coming at you on 5-on-5. If you want to load them up, maybe it's in a nuclear option, right? Like playing Dobson with Hudson with 2 minutes left in the game and you're looking for a goal. Like, maybe, yes. But at 5-on-5 with matchups and everything, you really don't want to load up that first line too much, just because, ultimately, if you play a deeper team, they will burn you that way. Look at, for example, the Edmonton Oilers playing the Florida Panthers. The Oilers had to routinely split up Draisaitl and McDavid so that they can keep up with Florida's three lines of doom that just consistently came in and hammered them shift after shift at 5-on-5. So that's the vision I think the Canadiens have for it. But I agree with everybody. I'd love to see Suzuki play with Demidov at some point.
Yeah, me too.
I think those two would create magic.
Well, let's put that under the category of good problems to have. Like, for a Montreal Canadiens team, I don't know if you think the rebuild is done or not, but like the point that I guess I would make here is that the Canadiens have options, guys that are fighting and pushing, and that you've got to be looking over your shoulder. And
Absolutely.
again, I'll bring up one of the analysts that I respect, in Mark Denis from RDS, who does a great job on the call with Pierre Hood about what's wrong with having two number one lines, what's wrong with having two number one power play units, and which takes me to Patrick Laine. Like, one of the keys for the Montreal Canadiens, and this is Captain Obvious here. If the Canadiens are going to be playoff bound again, they're going to need Patrick Laine healthy, contributing like he did last year. They don't make the playoffs if not for all of those goals he scored, and the role that he's going to play. Are they going to to be dramatic, hide him at 5-on-5 more often than not? If he doesn't get his touches, everybody likes to look and chart their ice time there. But again, I don't know what the Canadiens think about Patrick Laine, how big this season is for him as it relates to the future as a Montreal Canadien. So what do you think about the possibility of Patrick Laine and how he's kind of used, especially at 5-on-5, to balance out the attack?
I think it's a little difficult to evaluate Patrick Laine because there are elements in his game that you've clearly seen him improve on, throughout the season. Like, I find that he's less of a traveler in the defensive zone when the puck is in the Canadian zone and they're playing man to man and whatnot, right? Like I feel like he's more engaged and committed to the two-way side of the puck. And, considering the way he was playing before, like, I don't know if that's saying much, but to me, his issue, and I think the issue here is always, I don't understand why the Canadiens have not had a conversation with him about his zone entries. Because I feel like that's where plays go to die, is when Patrick Laine is attempting a zone entry. He does not have the speed nor the rapidity, like the rapidness of execution with his hands to play that way anymore. And you play on a line that's dumping and chasing with Jake Evans and Josh Anderson. So to me, I don't know that line can stay together and be effective. I think you'd be hurting the ability of that fourth line to be that shutdown element. So to hide Patrick Laine, look, to me, like, if Zach Bolduc isn't ready to start, I think Veleno, Doc, and Laine will be fine.
Sure.
And Veleno's speed can make up for that. But it's about the strategy. Like, if I'm Patrick Laine and you have no other option, dump it. Allow Kirby Dach and Joe Veleno, who have excellent foot speed, to do some of that work for you. It's about the way that they think the game. And that, to me, is on coaching, right? Like, that's where Martin St. Louis has to come
100%.
in and have that conversation. Yeah. But again, and I'll reiterate this because, I'm not in the room and I'm not an NHL coach. This is me observing. But the best way for Patrick Laine to be effective is to use his body, take up space, cause ruckus in the neutral zone with his reach, get the puck to his teammates, get settled in the zone, and get open. And I think that is when he could be at his best. We saw Kovalev-esque fake last night where he completely undressed a defenseman and then just got robbed right at the end with a stick check, or else that would have been a highlight reel goal. But it's that kind of play where he kind of explodes into the play without him being the play driver on that line or the guy that has to come in with possession. That's the way I see it. And right now he thinks he can play that way, that role. And more often than not, he loses those one-on-one battles. So if you want to avoid, a loss of possession and then going it back the other way, I think playing or at least coaching an idea of a more conservative game, or putting him on a line with speedsters that can make up for his lack of speed is necessary.
It's Patrick Laine is going to be a happy camper when he's out there firing pucks from his office, scoring goals on the power play. I'm not the big skeptic that thinks that the 5-on-5 or the lack of minutes at 5-on-5 is really going to be a burr under this guy's saddle, but we shall see how it plays out, because the Montreal Canadiens last season finished the year with 40 dubs and 91 total points. Even if they get to 91, even if they get to 93, depending on how this season plays itself out, that might not be a high enough total. But
yeah,
I think the power play is going to be the most integral part, important part to getting this team over the line. They have so much. I haven't seen a team in Montreal. And it was funny last week. I got killed in the comments as I usually do. But this one was about when I asked you about the prospect you were most excited to see when we were talking about Demidov, and you're like, oh, that's a gimme putter. And I said Guy Lafleur. What I had meant to say was the forward. Obviously, right? Clearly, but whatever. It is what it is, right? But I have not seen a team in this market since I've been in the media, since my days of 2001 when we started the All Sports radio station, that they have so much depth at the forward position, so many options. And I get, they caught lightning in a bottle with Sheldon Surrey. Andrei Markov was a great QB on the power play. Andrei Markov's the greatest Canadiens defenseman my eyes have seen. And I don't come from the big three generation, right? So 79, I can't wait to see this guy honored. When is that? Is that December? I'd have to double check my calendar there. To see Markov honored by the Canadiens.
I think it's December 3rd.
I think, yeah, that sounds right to me. But, Marc-Andre Bergeron, Mark Streit, all these guys that caught lightning in a bottle when the Canadiens had a very hot gunning power play, right? This is so, yes, I love the whiz. The substance, the depth on this power play. I know there's only one puck, but obviously the power play is going to be important. Is it a make or break? Do you think it's a make or break? If the Canadiens power play languishes in the 20s, they're going to have a hard time. But if they get into the teens, into the high teens, into the single digits, we're talking about a playoff bound team.
Really? I think you want them to be in the 20s to be productive in terms of their power play. I think
where were they? They were 21, 22 last year, no?
I think they finished at 19.2. Because they
in the standing, in the overall standings.
Yeah. Okay, in league standings, yes. Because the way I see it, and I think the golden rule in the NHL is the famous: you want your two special teams to equal 100% or more for you to be in a good situation, right? So
agreed.
When you're looking at it, you talk about the power play. I'm also really concerned about the penalty kill, and I'm not saying concerned because I think they can't do it, but when you lose a Christian Dvorak, when you lose Joel Armia, when you lose a David Savard, that's kind of who's going to step up, who's going to be better, and that's why I kept an eye on the way that Noah Dobson played on the PK. I thought he played solidly on the PK despite clear mobility issues. I thought he was thinking the game well. I thought he was moving his body well. Nick Suzuki has always been a staple there. So is Jake Evans. But I think, a guy like Alex Newhook is going to be valuable in that kind of a situation. I think a guy like Joe Veleno can play in those kinds of situations as well. So they'll definitely have options. On the power play, I think they just need to keep it simple and not necessarily have to overthink this. Like, I want to keep my 5-on-5 lines together, or I don't want too many shooters on one wave. So to me, I think any team in the NHL has to have, a top 12 power play, top 15 power play, really. Only the teams with elite defensive ability can really make it without that. And I don't think the Canadiens are there yet. So I'm with you on this one. They absolutely need to have at least a 21%, power play, in my opinion, to be able to make up for maybe some of the goals that they gave up on the PK that they weren't necessarily doing last year.
So let's get into, our thoughts on this season, right? And where the Canadiens kind of are in the Atlantic Division, right? I mean, off the top, I'm going to say Tampa Bay is going to be the best team in the Atlantic Division. I'm fascinated by what happens with Toronto. I'm very curious to see how they play itself out, absorbing the loss of a Mitch Marner. Can Nyes level up? Can Austin Matthews, take this team and run with it? To be determined, right? They brought James Reimer in for a little goalie depth, and I wonder about the Ottawa Senators, the rival of the Montreal Canadiens. Along, the days of the Habs and Bruins and the radio wars between Montreal and Boston. I wish those days would come back, but that's not happening. The Florida Panthers with devastating injuries, obviously to their captain and their leader, to a gamer, a winner like Matthew Tkachuk, right? That's significant. And that takes us to who's going to be fighting for the third spot, the fourth spot, the fifth spot. How close, let's start with Ottawa. How close are the Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators in terms of competitive balance? The Senators had 5 more wins and 6 more points. And both teams last year got off to very slow starts. So walk me through your thoughts about the Senators and the Canadiens and where they're at.
I think the Senators are stronger down the middle than the Montreal Canadiens. I think that's where their strength lies. I would say that Ullmark is a more proven goalie than Samuel Montembeault, and I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I think after that, I think the Canadiens beat them in terms of winger depth. I think the Canadiens beat them in terms of organizational depth. I think that,
agreed.
If injuries hit the Ottawa Senators, Lord have mercy. Whereas if injuries hit the Montreal Canadiens, well, as we just finished talking about, you have a Florian Xhekaj you can call up. You have an Owen Beck you can call up.
Adam Engstrom.
Joshua Roy a last shot at forward. You have Adam Engstrom you can call up, right? Like there is depth at every position. So I'm not necessarily worried there. The Ottawa Senators did a really good job of trading away all of their top picks for players that are no longer on their roster in DeBrincat and Chychrun, and have to give up their first round pick this year because of the Dadonov situation. So, their organizational depth went to hell because they traded away all their picks at that time because they thought their rebuild was over, which is why I caution everybody about this one. So I think that's where it's going to be played, right? If there is a major injury to a Tim Stützle or a Dylan Cousins, that team is sunk. I think defensively, Sanderson is a gem, going to be a top 10, maybe 5 NHL defenseman in his prime. Someone to rival Lane Hudson for years and years to come. Thomas Chabot is a good defenseman. Yeah. And then after that, I think Nick Jensen is getting up there in age. And I think going to get a guy like Malcolm Spence was a smart move, but I don't think he moves the needle enough for them for it to make much sense. And then you look at the Canadiens and you have Dobson, Cooley, Hudson, Matheson, Xhekaj, Carrier. Like, I feel like all of those guys would be can't miss players on the Ottawa Senators defense compared to what they have now. So I think defensively, the Montreal Canadiens have an advantage there. I think winger wise, Cole Caulfield, Juraj Slafkovsky, you look at even Ivan Demidov, Zach Balzuk, even a Patrick Laine on the power play. I just feel like they are better surrounded. But if they had the center line of the Ottawa Senators, like if they had a Dylan Cousins playing behind Nick Suzuki, I feel like the Montreal Canadiens would be a top 3 team in the Atlantic all day, every day.
So as we know, I mean, the Canadiens shocked the world and made the playoffs as the second wild card team. Ottawa and Montreal, those are the 2 wild card teams, right? We're speaking almost like exclusively about the Atlantic Division, but like let's dip our toes into the Metro for a second. Like the New York Rangers roster to me, I don't know. It's a hot take.
Rangers. You know what the New York Rangers roster reminds me of?
Hot garbage.
Jesus. Okay. I was going to go with it. Eerily reminds me of the 08-09 Canadiens roster in the Centennial season with all those free agents in the lineup and them just like being a little shaky and then it all going to hell and all of these players leaving. Like, I think that's where the Rangers are at right now.
I'm not, one person in the comments says outside of Nick Suzuki, who doesn't have like better depth down the middle. I don't think the Rangers are better down the middle than the Montreal Canadiens are. I mean, Vincent, I like Vincent Trocheck, don't get me wrong,
but they've decided that Zibanejad is a winger now.
Exactly.
Like center winger, right? And then after that, you kind of factor in your organizational depth. If they if push came to shove, yes, I think the Rangers have a better center depth than the Montreal Canadiens. If push came to shove, they could be able to line up centers in a top 9 situation that would be superior. Where the Canadiens, I think, get them is on defense, right? Sure. Yes, going to get a guy like Gavrikov makes sense, but you just lost Keandre Miller in a trade, right? So like,
and what about Adam Fox come back here, right? Like,
but even if Adam Fox has a Norris level season, it's like when the Boston Bruins had basically McAvoy sitting on an island by himself before the acquisition of Hampus Lindholm, right? Like he was just kind of doing his own thing after Chara retired, right? So that's where I'm kind of at with the Rangers right now is that yes, the Gavrikov-Fox combo could work really well, but then after that, your second and third pair, like I like Braden Schneider, I really do, but I just don't feel like, and William Borgen is a really good defenseman as well, but just it doesn't speak to me enough to say that's a team that's going to stick out in the Metro when you have Washington that looks stacked at every position, when you have the Carolina Hurricanes retooling on the fly after letting go of Orlov and Brent Burns, when you have, the New Jersey Devils who look primed outside of an injury to Jonathan Kovacevic to make a run, assuming that Jack Hughes stays healthy. I just don't see them having that standout ability, right?
Fair. So, before we move on, right? Lots of comments. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe to our channel. Welcome to the Starr and D'Amico Show. I'm Shaun Starr. There's Marco D'Amico. You can support us by supporting our sponsors, cheapesttshirts.ca, locally owned. McLean's Pub. Marco and I will be there for a live in-person show. No reservations. Just walk through the front door. You'll meet Marco. You can meet me. We'll be at McLean's October 22nd. From 7 to 8 p.m., 12:10 p.m. And Marco, quickly, we have some awesome giveaway opportunities too on October 22nd, don't we?
Yes. We'll be giving away gift cards to McLean's Pub, and we'll also be giving away a pair of tickets to a future Montreal Canadiens game this season. So we'll keep you guys posted in terms of how that contest is going to work. Obviously, like and subscribe because that's probably going to be part of the deal. But Fair. We're definitely going to make it very interesting and very fun for you. We will be doing a live show. We'll also be doing a watch party as well, so you can come and hang with us during the game, watch the game, and in between the intermissions, there'll be more contests, quizzes, and a live Q&A for you guys if you want to ask more questions even during the game. So first come, first serve. We'll see you there. And welcome Catherine Prince, Remax Platinum broker, friend to the show, friend of yours. You want to know what your house is worth today? Maybe you want to move closer to the Bell Center. You don't have to take the Metro or Park. Catherine Prince, catherineprince.ca is her website. That's Catherine with a K. What about these Columbus Blue Jackets, man? They were 2 points back of the Canadiens with the same amount of wins. Montreal and Columbus both had 40 dubs this season. They're always Columbus is such an interesting team to me. What version of Sean Monahan are they going to get? Good depth down the middle with Coyle and Boone Jenner. Obviously, Adam Fantilli is a superstar in the making there. How pesky are the Columbus Blue Jackets going to be to the Montreal Canadiens fan base to watch here? Yeah, you talk about a team with offensive depth. I mean, Jesus, you could just start naming them off.
Yeah, no kidding.
It is. They have, to me, a strong center line, good wingers. I think the real question is, can Zach Werenski carry that defense? That's my question, because I don't think Denton Matejchuk, who they drafted. Well, again, Provorov, to me, you see, look at that contract with Provorov, $8.5 million.
Yeah,
that was a panic contract because they missed out on
right?
Noah Dobson, right? So that was a panic contract. They knew that was what they were asking for. They knew that was what the defensive market was going to be. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody now, but $8.5 million is going to be second pair money for an unrestricted free agent defenseman moving forward, in my honest opinion. So that's the reason they went and did that. They still have Damon Severson. We'll see what Eric Branson can do. But to me, that's their area of weakness, is going to be their defense. And most of that is carried by Zach Werenski, who, in my opinion, probably should have won the Norris last year if Columbus or if he had a little bit more of an exciting following that the Makars and the Quinn Hugheses have. So to me, that's the team that's going to be the other wild card kind of element that's going to be pushing for that third spot in the Metro.
I think the Montreal Canadiens can be a top 3 team in their division this year. I do. I can see a path. I get it. Where they get there. I'm going to walk you through it as quickly as I can. To me, it begins with the power play. If the Montreal Canadiens, 2 waves on the man advantage, can live up to the talent that I believe they have, I think that's going to propel them to a higher seeding after 82 games. The other big X factor to me is Ivan Demidov. And can he have a Laine Hudson kind of season, your rookie of the year front runner right now, according to odds makers? Can he have that version up front? I see a patient, confident young man that I read a lot into. And I think the Montreal Canadiens have an absolute star in the making in Ivan Demidov. I think Noah Dobson is the other reason why. I think Noah Dobson with the minutes that he can eat, with the offense that he can provide, I think he's out from underneath the Patrick Waugh shadow. I think Martin St. Louis might be one of the most relatable coaches coaching a squad in the NHL today. And I think you've seen there's a lot of examples of MSL's touches on guys that have leveled up. Cole Caulfield, Josh Anderson, just to name two. Look at the season Brendan Gallagher is coming off of. Look at the season Laine Hutson had, which takes me to number 48, Laine Hutson, the 6 goals and 60 assists. I have a hard time imagining the sophomore slump coming for 48. There's so much skill on this team, so much depth on this team. And yes, they got to check a lot of boxes. I get it. Lots of ifs and buts there, but I believe they have the potential. I really do, to be a top 3 team in the NHL's Atlantic Division. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about Tampa Bay, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, kind of fighting it all out over the course of what should be an outstanding season, Marco.
Yeah, I really wouldn't count out the Florida Panthers just yet.
I know.
Think, you talk about players that might break out. I say keep an eye out for Anton Lundell.
I agree, man. How long have we been talking about this guy on this channel, brother?
I think Anton Lundell is probably one of the NHL's best kept secrets and probably one of the most valuable contracts on the market right now in terms of his $5 million for another 4 years. Just a steal of a deal for a guy that's going to be almost put up 50-ish points last season playing in the third line role. This is a guy who I think is going to alleviate the loss of a Barkov. Obviously, he's not going to make up for the whole thing, but with the winger depth that organization has, he's a guy who can step into the top 6 and help them kind of keep pace. So for me, Florida is going to be their team defense and above all, Bobrovsky that's going to keep them in the race. If Bobrovsky continues to have a strong showing like he has the last couple of years, I think that they'll be in the playoff race and a team that could be vying for that second or third wildcard spot. I agree with you. I think Tampa Bay is going to be the team to beat. I think that they did a good job in being able to bring in a little bit more depth in their lineup. And this is a team that's going to be aggressive, I feel like, as of soon as November. All the conversations that I've heard of revolving around Tampa Bay is they've been aggressive as heck in calling teams about certain player availabilities. So they definitely have a shopping list and they're definitely ready to go shopping. So I wouldn't sleep on them at all. When it comes to Montreal, and I like what you said about Hudson. I think Hudson, obviously the contract is weighing on him. So you see him play. He's playing all out in a preseason game for a reason. Like every game is a statement right now for Laine Hudson, and not just to the Montreal Canadiens, but to Bill Guerin and Tom Fitzgerald and the entire Team USA management team for, obviously snubbing him for the orientation camp. He could still make the roster. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, he filled out the paperwork that was sent to him by USA Hockey to make him eligible or part of the eligible list to play in the Olympics. So we'll know more. I believe it's a week or 8 days from today is, I believe, when they have to submit like their 45 player roster to the Olympic Committee. And so we'll know if he's on it by then or not, but he's definitely playing with fire right now in his eyes, because he wants to prove people that think he's just what have people called him in the past, a gadget player, just a power play merchant, as I've seen. He wants to prove that he could play a far more complete game. And if you've been paying attention to the preseason, he's definitely giving double effort in the defensive zone when it comes to separating players from pucks, protecting the puck, thinking the game, slowing down the pace. He's playing a far safer game, in my opinion, and I think it shows. So I think Laine Hudson leveling up is definitely in the cards, and what's going to help propel the Canadiens from making the playoffs on the last game of the season to comfortably making the playoffs, by like end of March. To me, the biggest wild card is can the Canadiens get a second line going at 5-on-5? Because I think power play wise, it'll sort itself out the same way that Laine Hudson found himself on the first power play wave. So too will eventually Ivan Demidov. And I think that's when you'll see a full click.
Well, it's fascinating you bring that up, right? Because I want to spend like the last 10 minutes here interacting with the fans and putting some of their questions
I don't
up,
see any of the comments, so I want to see all this.
We've been putting, every now and again, but like maybe it's a super fanboy take. What I'm about to spit out at you right here is
Uh-oh.
I'm so confident in Ivan Demidov's game that whatever line he's on, it's going to drag him into the fight, man. He's going to make him look good. That's how confident I am. So here, let's put this one up. Big shout out to Tom M. Thank you so much, brother. Fearing the lessons of last year may have been lost. Talking about a skilled team, but a soft team. Talking about Demidov and Hudson and protection. One of the lessons, Marco, I think I learned here is that this is a tough together team. This is very legitimately, this is a very glue team, man. And I think they are team tough. And I think just because Florian Jacki, who I do not expect to make the team and be in the NHL on Wednesday in Toronto, I don't believe that the loss of Florian Jacki, as much as I'd like to see him on Wednesday, I don't believe his absence from that lineup will make the Canadiens, air quote, softer. One of the things I learned is I think this is a team tough year for them. I'm not so worried about them being soft or Hudson and Demidov lacking protection.
This is the way I'm going to say this. The opening night roster may not be the roster that they end with.
Okay. You want to elaborate?
I can't. But that's what I'm going to say. It's an 82 game season.
Yes.
Soon to be 84.
Yeah.
Really the toughness angle is in the later stages of the season. That's why you see a load up of physical talent kind of towards the trade deadline. The Canadiens are aware of this. And in fact, they honestly feel like if they can send Florian Jacki and Adam Engstrom down to Laval, that they would allow them to develop. And if they're ready for NHL action come March, they don't have to make a deadline acquisition because they just went and got their crash and banger by just developing them in-house, right? So I don't think the Canadiens had a toughness issue last season. I think that this has been accentuated to like massive levels because they had a toughness issue in the playoffs, which every young team that comes into this situation generally does because it is a different game between the regular season and the playoffs. And you have to adapt to that both as players and organizationally. And that's why you have a guy like Sami Blais. That's why Josh Anderson is valuable to this team. That's why they want to see more physicality from a guy like Kirby Dach. That's why Arber Xhekaj is going to be a staple in the lineup. That's why they're asking Jaden Struble to be more physical, because first it has to come from the inside. Then you bring in elements that can add to that without sacrificing talent. And that's what the Canadiens are looking for right now. But that market doesn't exist yet because every team, except for maybe 3 or 4, think they're going to make the playoffs this year. Once they start trailing off, that's when the Canadiens can start looking to add those elements.
How many guys have been like Zach Bolduc is a massive X factor in terms of, we're using the word leveling or the phrase leveling up. Zachary Bolduc, who was phenomenal for the Blues down the stretch to get them over the line in the Western Conference. Like guys in the preseason playing a little hurt. We talked about Gooley. We talked about Dobson. Obviously, Bolduc. Do you think there's a chance that he's not in the opening lineup Wednesday due to injury?
I think he should play. Day to day, was the call, right? So I think if you don't see him at practice tomorrow, then you could probably start panicking. But I think he'll play. And you talk about toughness element. That was one of the major reasons why they acquired Bolduc, because he's a tough player that can shoot like no other in terms of that release on the left side, especially when he can get into the slot or the bumper area. So that was one of the elements that they decided they needed, a top 6 physical presence. And I think that's exactly what he brings, along with a shooting ability. Sherry, I'm very confused about the Maple Leafs.
Me too.
I don't know that Anthony Stolarz is going to be able to play 50-plus games this season and look as good as he did last season.
Yeah.
We don't know yet what's going on with Woll. That's why the Leafs are looking into goaltending potentially in terms of an ad. Their defense consistently mystifies me in terms of what they're adding. I like Chris Tanev. I really, really did in his career. I just feel like he's reaching the point where he's just consistently always not playing at 100%, and that impacts his game. Yeah. I think Morgan Riley's taken a step back. They don't have a true number 1 defenseman, in my honest opinion. So it's really difficult for me to evaluate them. And the loss of Mitch Marner is going to be felt seriously at 5-on-5 in that element as well. So I don't know about the Leafs. That's why I put Tampa at the top because Tampa is Tampa. And if they can remain healthy, then they should be there. Just to go back to the Canadiens, though, I feel like the toughness element is going to come from team toughness first and foremost. And that is why the Canadiens have been so aggressive. So aggressive in terms of going to get guys that can make plays in tight. And I think that's the key here. No one's going to kill themselves in the preseason to pay the price to go into the gritty areas to score goals, unless they're fighting for a playoff spot, unless they're fighting for a roster spot.
Yeah, not the established guys. Yeah.
No, and I can tell you this, fans, from being in the room and talking to the players, they couldn't wait for this to finish. They're not going to jeopardize their season so that they could potentially look good for projections, so that fans and analysts can feel better about the way that they view a team. Like, they just want to finish the preseason in peace. And when the real games start, that's when players are going to sacrifice, because coach is watching and they're going to take no games off for that. So I really wouldn't worry about it. You know, it's kind of the point of playing a little bit more perimeter in that kind of sense. But I would definitely say that the Canadiens were not playing perimeter last night. It's just that the Ottawa Senators were really good at boxing them out.
This from Bill. Listen, you know, my take on this is I think Joe Veleno makes the team. I think Oliver Kapanen makes this team. I think the Canadiens, as Martin St. Louis probably, you know, strongly indicated yesterday, they're going to go with 13 forwards. But I mean, I heard whispers that maybe we'd get an announcement today. What about Bill's question about the roster?
They're off today. Today's like media, everyone's off. So I think if we hear anything, it'll be tomorrow. You have to give your final rosters by 5 p.m. on October 7th. 5 p.m. Eastern, that is, on October
Tuesday.
7th. Yeah. Tuesday at 5 p.m. That will be the latest in which we will know. And I think at that point you'll have to know, because if they're going to carry 13 forwards, it means that Sammy Blais is probably going to be waived, if that's the case.
Yeah.
So you'll know about him at 2 p.m. on Tuesday at the latest, because they have to put him on waivers before they could submit their final roster.
Damn. Gary bringing the smoke on Uri Slafkovsky, the forward version of Peter Popovic. How much pressure do you think the fans, not you or I, but how much pressure do you think this fan base is going to put on Uri Slafkovsky if they don't like what they see out of the gate, man? You know how this fan base can react. You know, everybody has expectations. Gary has his, you have yours, I have mine, and there are varying degrees of expectations. But I mean, the pressure from the marketplace is going to be something. Like, people are expecting Uri Slafkovsky to have a better season this year. I mean, that's fair across the board, but it's more like, what's the reaction going to be if he doesn't get off to a good start again?
Yeah, look, this is why I don't make definitive.
Let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that in mind too.
I don't make definitive takes on a player that's a veteran, a fourth-year veteran, or about to start his fourth year in the preseason. I don't. This is when you evaluate players that are trying to make it in the show, and you're trying to be reassured for players that are coming back from injury, like Kirby Dach, for example. Yeah. But I'm not going to look at this preseason and be like, Slafkovsky's soft, because that guy was hammering stuff. Like, he was one of the only physical presences for the Montreal Canadiens in their series against the Washington Capitals. What I want to see is Slafkovsky get angry, but I don't want him getting angry in the preseason. I want to see it in the regular season. And I think that that entire team, and I stress this to fans, the entire Canadiens team just wanted to get through the preseason and tune up, and that's it. And you know, the evaluation will come puck drop Wednesday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs, because that's when we're really going to start being able to evaluate apples to apples, and in a situation where all players have to perform now. It's not a question of making the team. The teams are made. Now it's about going out and performing. And at that point, my expectations for Slafkovsky will increase the same way you're seeing certain fans in the comments right now.
I just hope, for his own sake, that, there's one thing to be, play intense, but, stay within yourself. Stay where your feet are at. In terms of, like, not reacting too dramatically to one thing or the other and trying to compensate because the perception of, you don't play hard enough. It's, finding that confidence level.
Well,
And, he's part of a great line on this team, in this organization. It is a very, very good / dominant line with Cole Caulfield career high in 37 points, Nick Suzuki 89 points, Uri Slafkovsky elite at puck retrieval, elite at net front presence, tip drill, so on and so forth. Like, he has earned his spot on this line with room to grow. I just hope he's not too hard on himself because he's still kind of air quote inexperienced and still very young.
I think what you want to see is more urgency in his game on a general basis, right?
What do you mean?
You
like more intensity, consistent intensity?
Intensity, but also B, like, for example, I feel like, even last night or something I observed, but the time it takes for his release is too long. You want it to be faster, snapper, right? You don't want it to be like this where he has to pull the puck back to take that shot, like just straight flick, right? And see what happens there. You don't necessarily have to like wire the puck through the netting every time you take a shot. So it's about being a little bit more aggressive, being a little bit more intense, not simply just with the use of his body, but the way he plays the game. You want to see more oomph. When you look at a guy like Cole Caulfield with puck, and obviously I'm comparing apples to oranges here, but when Cole Caulfield has the puck on his stick, it's explosive. Something's going to happen. He's so shifty, this and that. Whereas Slafkovsky is longer stick, longer stride, more time to make a movement, right? So you need it to be even snappier, right? You need the execution to be quicker. People want to see a little bit more of that because we've seen Slafkovsky get to a point where his execution gets really, really quick, right? Mm-hmm. It's called the second half of the season, apparently. But everybody wants to see that in October. And I think that's where the frustration lies in a lot of the comments that we see here. Not simply just his physical ability, because he's not going to be a Brady Tkachuk, even though he says that. He is going to be a Mikko Rantanen light. And that has always been the comparison. But I mean light. And now it's a question of if it's light or light, because it's really, he's got to hit that extra gear. He's got to get to the 60, 65, 70 point plateau to really earn that kind of a moniker. Because to me right now, he's playing like a second line player, not a first line player in general. I'm not taking anything in this preseason for granted in terms of this is what it's going to be. I'm saying based on last year and based on some of the ways we've seen him play, there's a reason why a lot of people think Demidov is going to be the one to take his spot, is because he's been far more impressive. But again, it's his first preseason. He's showing what he can do. He's fighting for a job, even though we all know he's making this team. But he's going out there to prove that he is there and he's a proud athlete. So it's a very different context. And that's all I got to say.
Final thoughts on, again, the roster deadline in terms of it being submitted Tuesday. The Canadiens are in action Wednesday, Thursday in Toronto, in Chicago. They open up the Bell Center regular season against the Seattle Kraken. I'm not expecting any surprises. And by surprise, I would qualify surprise as, what's up, Tony? What's good? Proud member of the Starr and D'Amico show. You can join our show for $2.99 a month and cancel anytime. And you get early access to all the content we put out, generally 24 hours before it goes live to the public. I would qualify a surprise as Adam Engstrom makes the Canadiens. Florian Jacki makes the Canadiens and is there Wednesday night. Are you expecting a surprise, or walk me through who breaks camp as a Montreal Canadien?
Thank you, Vince. I think Kapanen not playing the final game was basically a lock for him to make this team. So I think he's on. I'm going to shock the world here and say that Ivan Demidov is on this team. I think in terms of cuts, you'll see Florian Jacki go back to Laval. I think the Canadiens definitely want to continue to grow his offensive game and put him in offensive situations with lots of minutes. Owen Beck, same concept. Yeah. Where I think it's going to be played is if the Canadiens decide to go 13 or 14 forwards, then I believe at that point, Sammy Blais would probably be the one cut here. Joe Veleno simply just showed too much for me in terms of value, speed, intensity, that they would ignore that. My honest opinion, I don't see the need to subject Sammy Blais to waivers, just keep him as a 14th forward. You have the roster ability to do so. And then Adam Engstrom, because if you're sending down Adam Engstrom, which I believe they will, then you're at 7 defensemen. You have 2 goalies. You're allowed to carry 23 men, and you have $4.5 million of cap space. Why not carry 14 players? But again, I'm not the capologist. Maybe there's cap accrual purposes for this, but why risk putting Sammy Blais through waivers is my only thing. But other than that, I think that everything else is kind of set in stone. We have to see if Zachary Bolduc can play the first game. If not, they could always put him on retroactive IR, which would allow them to keep Sammy Blais without having to put him through waivers. We'll have to see how all that shakes out. But I think the last cut would be Blais in this case, with the 3 youngsters being able to go down to Laval without waivers.
Marco and I both believe Oliver Kapanen will make this team, for those throwing it out there in the chat. And again, just to clarify, I misspoke. It's Detroit on Thursday, Toronto Wednesday, Detroit Thursday, Saturday at Chicago, home opener October 14th against the Seattle Kraken. 65 minutes has absolutely flown by. Welcome to the newest version of this show. It's the Starr and D'Amico show on youtube.com. We will be live following Montreal Canadiens game, so you can look forward to a live show again on Thursday and Friday morning, following the back-to-back to open up the regular season. And of course, you can subscribe, and go back and watch this video if you only watched a bit of it. It'll be up, obviously, on the channel. And looking forward to a fantastic season. And I hope to see many of you at McLean's on October 22nd. And maybe you're wearing the best T-shirts from cheapesttshirts.ca with no minimum order, next day delivery, proudly locally owned and operated. Check out their website, cheapesttshirts.ca, brother. So that's it for a Sunday Live. Marco, not too bad, brother.
Yeah, I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, also make your Sunday morning a Starr and D'Amico show morning.
Yes.
You will be seeing us every Sunday, considering that the Montreal Canadiens play basically the next 29 of the next 30 Saturdays. So you can expect us to be here doing a live with you guys every Sunday for the foreseeable future. So keep us locked on Sunday mornings. Generally going to be doing this every morning at 10 a.m. So if you guys like what you see and you enjoy it, by all means, come and hang out with us. During the regular season, we'll have a little bit more time, obviously, to field your questions. Things are moving a lot more rapidly. So, no problem with having you guys here. We appreciate you all, and we look forward to a full season to be able to talk hockey with you and obviously see this team on the ice and see where things go.
Bro, let's go to Rio de Janeiro. Let's do a live show from Rio.
I don't know that you'll be able to find me if I go to Rio.
I can't wait. Can't wait. It's going to be an awesome season, and we're happy to be here with you. And thanks for watching and just watching the comments. Thank you guys. You're just absolutely the best audience on youtube.com. Marco, enjoy your Sunday, my man, and we'll see you. We got content coming out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe there's a surprise contract extension. If there is, D'Amico and Starr will be with you to break it all down. And we'll be here again on Thursday morning following the Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs to open up the season. Marco, thanks, man.
Always a pleasure, guys. Have a good day, everybody.